Welcome to Wednesday Web Chat. This is Carl Lewis, your host from Vision 33. Today, our topic is going to be somewhat, as much as we can tell you in a few short minutes, about integration and automation with iDocuments. My good friend and colleague, Duncan Wyeth, will be here to do that. Duncan, welcome to today's Wednesday Web Chat.
Thank you, Carl. Great to be here yet again. I believe there are one or two people on here that may have heard me speak before. For those of you that haven't, my name's Duncan Wyeth. I've been involved with the iDocuments solution now for 6.5 years, but I've been involved with SAP Business One for, would you believe, 20 years. It started way back in 2003. And it is my humble opinion that iDocuments is the add-on for Business One that everybody should have. It is actually a complementary solution, so it doesn't install as an add-on. It sits in the cloud on its own and it connects to SAP Business One via the DI API or the service layer for HANA. And it synchronizes your data backwards and forwards to enable you to do things in the world of purchasing, sales, and expenses outside of SAP, leveraging greater value out of your investment in Business One and delivering greater value to your end users. And there are three key parts to iDocuments. There are three things we do. Purchase to pay, which is what I'm going to focus on when I show you the product in a little while. And the purchase to pay side of things really enables you to do everything in the processing of purchase requisitions and purchase orders and the approval of those documents outside of Business One. It delivers great enhancements on what you can do in Business One and additional functionality. Allows you to turn requisitions to orders. It allows you to process goods receipts against those orders. You can issue the order direct to the supplier from within iDocuments, receive the goods, record the receipt of the goods, and then when your AP invoices arrive, and they can come into the system, be automatically matched to your purchase orders and your goods receipts. And then if there is a perfect match, the user just gives it a visual check, says okay, and it will post to SAP. And if it's outside of your tolerance limits, it will go off for approval using your own user-defined workflows for approval. So they're totally different to the approval workflows you have in SAP. They sit outside of SAP. And in fact, you can do approvals on a mobile device. iDocuments comes with a mobile app for expenses and for document approvals. So we're going to focus everything we do today on purchase to pay because it's largely regarded as the low-hanging fruit within any organization. It's the area where if you're not doing it, you will see great value from it and you'll be able to get a very rapid return on your investment. We have an expenses management application that sits alongside iDocuments purchasing, and the expense management really allows users to do two things: capture your expenses on a mobile device for employee reimbursements and capture credit card expenditure on a mobile device, and then allocate that expenditure to the credit card statement when it comes in, process that statement and pay it through your SAP system. What's different with our system is every time you process an expense line, be it a reimbursement or a credit card, you take a picture of the receipt and that receipt image is then stored against the transaction line in SAP. So if we post the expenses down as a purchase invoice for settlement to the employee, we post the image lines against, the images against the lines on the invoice. And if we post it as a journal, in the case of a credit card claim, again, we post those images to those lines in the journal. So all of your tax implications of being able to claim the tax back because you've got the receipt, it's all done and taken care of within iDocuments. And there's a lot of work going into making the expense management system a bit smarter and a bit more intuitive. The sales order automation side, for me, this is very much a growing side of what iDocuments can do. It's relatively new, but we've taken our data capture capability from AP invoices and we've put that into sales orders. So an incoming order from a customer, we can now process that order. We can match the order lines to the items in SAP and create a sales order ready for a visual check. And you can check it and then just process that document, drop it into SAP Business One, ready to ship. Now, to give you an example of the power we're getting with that, we have a client over here in the UK that looked at this about a year ago. They were doing some significant volumes actually on SAP ECC6, but they process 1,000 sales orders a day and they were processing those manually. So one of the costs to them was actually wearing out keyboards. They were literally wrecking keyboards by hammering away at them all day and processing data. They put in the iDocuments sales order processing system, and they are now processing 1,000 orders a day with just 3 full-time employees. Massive savings. It's taken no time at all for them to realize the value, generate the savings, and that's just in staff times. There's a lot of other benefits downstream of that. So 3 key areas: purchasing, sales, and expenses. We're going to focus a short presentation on the product now, on the purchasing capability. So I'm going to log in. I think if I try and do anything now, it's going to ask me to log into iDocuments. There we go. iDocuments is a browser-based application. It's a SaaS solution available from a public cloud that is hosted entirely by Vision 33. So if you're running your SAP Business One system in the Vision 33 cloud, connectivity is simple. If you're running your SAP system on-premise or in a third-party private cloud environment, we can connect to that as well. It doesn't matter whether you're SQL or HANA. Connection to Business One is very straightforward. I'm going to sign in with a username and a password. I can use two-factor authentication. If I'm doing two-factor authentication, I will be required to use either the Google or the Microsoft Authenticator app. First thing you'll notice, system presents me with a number of tiles. I can drag and drop these tiles around on the screen. I can move them around. I can remove them completely. And I can save this layout, or I can reset it. If I reset it, it'll put it back to the factory default, which I'm doing because it's got stuff in there I'll need. But you can see it showing me here my pending tasks, what's due for submission, anything that's overdue, my favorites, my recent, etc. Key difference with Business One, up here it's a multi-company system. I've only got 1 company set up, but if I had 2 companies, I could choose the company I want to work with. And when I select that company, I don't need to log out and log back in. We allocate rights to a company within the user setup. So user A can see 1 company, user B can see 2, and user C can see all the companies you've got configured in SAP. So no need to log out and log back in again. And when you're doing approvals on the mobile device, it will actually show all documents you need to approve across all of the companies that you have access to. So let's look at some of the stuff in purchasing. I'll go here and select view purchase orders first. So I've got an option here, view purchase orders. It will show me all of my purchase orders. Anybody familiar with working with Business One will know getting to a transaction in Business One is not that easy. You can add transactions, but actually finding a particular transaction, unless you know the order number, you've got to navigate backwards and forwards, maybe put in a supplier, go and look at the particular details on that supplier. This will show you all of your purchase orders in one place, okay? We can see the order date, the order number, purchase order ID, we can see the status, supplier, etc., etc. So I know this order here has been submitted, it hasn't yet been approved, and I know who the next approver is. So if I'm desperate for this, I can pick the phone up, get hold of Ralph and say, hey, Ralph, can you process that order? And while you're at it, there's one there for CapEx I need you to process as well. You'll notice these orders are marked as closed for GRN. That's because they're service-based orders. As with SAP Business One, we can raise item orders and service orders. And if they're service-based orders, we can actually say, we don't want to do a goods receipt for a service-based order, okay? So you can do goods receipting for all orders or goods receipting just for your item-based orders. And then you can see from here, as I say, I've got the amount, and if I scroll across, I can actually see the base currency amount, the GRN amount. If I want to move the GRN amount and drop it in here next to the amount, so I can move that column across. I don't want to see the invoiced amount as well, so I'm going to take the invoice column, I'm going to drop that across, and I'm going to save that layout, and it will save that layout for me for the next time I log in. I can also replicate that layout to other users, so I can start to work with the way the system looks. All of these columns, I can filter on any of the columns. So I've got this filter option here to filter with some standard kind of Excel style, grid style filtering, contains, not equal to, less than, equal to, and so on. So I can filter all of my columns, and I can also sort on these columns. And then finally, I can add and remove columns. So I don't actually need to know what the base currency is here or the base amount. And I'm not that bothered about what's outstanding or whether there's a contract associated with this, but I don't want the currency either. So you can see now I can start to filter this layout, add and remove the columns, and I've got control over it. I can change the number of records that are going to appear on the screen. So I can say I want to see 50 at a time as opposed to 25, export to Excel, export to CSV. So a neat little way of working with it. And then finally, I can expose some additional filtering functionality up here to say, well, just show me everything I've got that's draft. It will show me all of my draft orders. So you can see it's very easy to work with purchase orders. It's also equally easy to work with purchase invoices, and lots of our users will actually stop using Business One when working with purchase orders, purchase invoices. The only time they actually log into Business One from an AP point of view is when they are processing a payment. Okay, it's the only thing we don't do is payment processing, but the invoice will post through to SAP in a bit. So you can raise a purchase order. Just to show you the screen, if I go in and say add purchase order, when we're adding a purchase order, there's a number of things that iDocuments does that's different to SAP Business One. The first is the order type. We've got service item, item no quantity, service no quantity. Standard Business One functionality is a purchase order for an item has a quantity. Purchase order for a service or GL code has no quantity. We give you the option to raise service orders with a quantity. Okay. We can also filter by group. So if I say I want to do a service document here and I want to filter that for my marketing group, what that's now going to do is filter the GL codes that I can use based on my marketing group and the suppliers that I can use. So I'm going to select the supplier ABC Consulting. This is an Ajax search. So it's going to search based on the description and the code, but it will select my supplier for me. And that's now going to filter the items or the GL codes that I can use. So when I select here for my GL code, those of you that are eagle-eyed will notice I've got 3 codes here that come from my balance sheet in Business One, but the rest are just my standard overhead codes. So I can stop those lovely people in marketing from raising purchase orders against my fixed assets control accounts or my depreciation accounts or all the other things that they shouldn't be using, but they find them because they're at the top of the screen in Business One, and then they just change the description. So I can pick my GL code, I can give it a description. I can give it any additional text. And then I can give it a delivery date on the line. I can give it a VAT code. Again, this is pulled straight from SAP Business One. So these are all my codes in Business One. I can give it a unit price and a quantity. Okay. And then my analysis codes over here, department, region, project, dimensions 1, 2, and 3. This apparel code is a user-defined field in Business One. Okay. So we can even work with user-defined fields from B1, which are pulled straight into iDocuments from B1. Okay, so we synchronize all of that data. When I've got my line in there, I can add additional lines, I can save this document, and I can submit this document for approval. And in this case, it will go to Ralph Loren, who is the approver for marketing. And one of the features we've now built into the system is with the new approval workflows, I can actually choose, because it's marketing, who I want to send it to for approval. And when I'm happy with that, and I think I've got everything covered, although I'm going at 900 miles an hour, I can hit submit, and it's got a delivery date missing. So there we go, delivery date 10th of May, and submit, and it will now submit that document. And Carl will receive a notification to say, please approve. When Carl approves it, it will go to the next stage in the workflow if there is one. And if not, it will flow back to me as the originator. It will come back to me and say it's been approved. And it will only do that once it has synchronized to SAP. So you see here, the document's been submitted. It doesn't have a PO number, so I can't do anything with it. Now we're going to look here at this document. This is one I did earlier. And this is a purchase order I raised for items. It's got 3 lines on it. And I want to show you a couple of things that are important with this. So we've got 3 lines on this purchase order. And I've processed that, I've approved it, and I've receipted it. So if I look at the related documents, there are 3 things to note. 1, there are 2 goods received notes for this document. Okay, so 2 goods received notes that have processed against this document. This is the invoice that isn't yet fully processed, so I'll come back to that in a minute. But you can see within iDocuments, when I process a purchase order, there is a little tick box here, and I can say copy to GRN, and it will allow me to receipt that item. So I've receipted this one. I want to keep this ticking along, so I'm not going to go into the receipting process. We then get an invoice from the supplier. So on my dashboard, I've got 2 purchase invoice scans. These are invoices that have come in. They've come in via email. The system's processed them. And the first one is for CTI computers. And that invoice matches the purchase order that we processed. Okay, so the invoice quotes the purchase order number, and the user simply clicks on that. The system then displays all of the details. So we've got the lines on the invoice. It's extracted the data from the system. So it's got the goods received numbers here, 1165 and 1166. It's got the purchase order numbers. We've got a perfect three-way match. If I want to update this data, one of the key things in iDocuments, I can actually change the project code here. And again, these project codes and dimensions are filtered based on what's in SAP Business One. So we'll change those. Okay, then I can hit the Save from Grid button up here. And if I save everything in the grid, it will save it, or I can just hit Submit. And if I hit Submit, that document will process through to SAP Business One because it has a perfect three-way match. Okay, so I'm just going to process that one manually. View purchase invoices, and bear with me a second. Approved. Search. So it's that one there, and I should be able to hit that button and say post to SAP. And while it's posting that one to SAP, I just want to show you another transaction we had on the dashboard. Some people still get invoices without a purchase order. If that's the case, the document comes in with no PO. And this is where iDocuments gets really clever and saves you a bunch of time. We pick up the document, we process the document, we haven't got a purchase order, so we then go to line level data extraction. You'll notice here that I've got a gross amount and I have no balance. I've got 3 lines on the document. The system has picked that up, it's processed the document, and it's automatically coded these 3 lines to the relevant GL account. Okay, so it's processed it to the relevant GL account. I can change that GL account if I choose to. So let's put that to external services. Okay. I've got full control over this document, but it's coded those lines for me using a blend of AI and machine learning. It does that itself. There's not a lot of effort that you need to do. The more you process documents, the more it learns. The more you use it, the more it learns. The more it learns, the less you have to do. Once I've done that, I can save that from the grid. And then I can hit Submit, and it will post that invoice into the system for approval. So you can see here, I've got my group. I know who the approver is going to be. I submit that document, and it will be sat in the system waiting for somebody to go and approve. And then finally in iDocuments, before I finish the piece on here, I just want to show you the bit that I thought I'd throw in for sales. So sales order scans. I mentioned that we can do lots with sales orders just to show you what actually works here. I've processed an order through the system earlier. I just dropped this order into the system to get it to run. And I think anybody that's used to raising a sales order in SAP Business One will know it's a bit of a drag. You know, you've got to do a lot of looking up the items, adding the items in, maybe interrogating what's in the PDF document. But in this case, this is a genuine purchase order issued to a genuine customer with multiple lines across multiple pages. What that's actually translated to in the system down here, you can see we've picked out all of the items. We've got the item description, the item code. We've got the free text, the VAT code or the tax code. And then here, we've got the price from SAP and the price from the scan. And where it's highlighted the differences. So any differences, and it's actually basing the order pricing on the scanned item. Now, in this case, this price is because we're not using units of measure, and we've got a price each, and this is the price on the order per dozen. But we can incorporate SAP Business One units of measure as well. So with that one, all I need to do is hit post or submit. But before I do, it's worth noting the deliver to address here, this data that you see here has actually been extracted from the deliver to address in the order. Okay. So we actually pulled that data off the order and dropped it into the deliver to address here, which we then overwrite on SAP. So finally, by now everything should have posted. If I go back to my SAP Business One system, this is my purchase order that I processed earlier. And if I look at the relationship map now, we should see we've got the purchase order 1168. We've got the 2 goods receipts, 1165 and 1166. If you don't believe me that they're the ones, actually go and look at the recording and wind back to the point where I processed it. That's the AP invoice. and we put that AP invoice into SAP Business One. And there should be, and I don't know why it's not there at the moment, but there should be the attachment on there, which will be the actual attachment of the PDF document. I'll go back and ask my colleague why that one hasn't come through, but we will actually attach the PDF document to the transaction in SAP. So close the loop, we've raised the order, we've receipted the goods, we've received the invoice, it's automatically been processed, approved, and posted to SAP Business One. That, Carl, concludes everything I can say about iDocuments in the allotted time without drawing breath. Anybody got any questions?
Hey, I do have one here question for you, Duncan. You mentioned that there's mobile applications for this. Can you access this web URL just using like an iPad or something like that?
Yeah, you could access it via an iPad. It's not, I've got to be honest, it's not an app. Okay, so in the iPad, you would be accessing the web URL through the standard browser. And on iPad mini, it's not great. On a standard iPad, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just a web browser. As long as your iPad has access to the internet, you can access it via your iPad.
Okay. But
which actually some of our clients do to do goods receipts out in the field.
Does the expense module work similarly, where there's mobile apps, but you could also access it, to a degree with iPads and whatnot?
Yeah, but the expense module is actually largely driven via a mobile app. Okay. So there is a proper mobile app that you download from the Apple Store or the Google Play Store.
So definitely a well-rounded set of offerings through iDocuments for the customer, and bringing a lot of help to 3 problem areas. As you said, the big payoff seems to be for most of the people is purchasing. It's kind of the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, I think in general, most organizations will accept that if they don't currently have an accounts payable automation system, the automation of the receipt of an invoice and the processing of that invoice in iDocuments will generate significant time savings, and it will generate significant cost savings in terms of accuracy, reduced audit fees, time to approve. Lots of our clients have shown in the past that they've been able to process AP invoices quicker, get them ready to pay quicker, and therefore pay them quicker. And if you pay your suppliers quicker, you can open up all sorts of opportunities for early settlement discount, which in itself generates significant savings across the business.
Absolutely.
More and more companies are starting to look at the sales order automation, simply because when they look at the sales orders, they're kind of looking at it and going, it takes hours to process sales orders. If I can do it automatically, it takes the time out. And more companies are receiving PDF copies of sales orders from their customers. So you can now go to your customers and say, look, you want to process the sales order for us? All you need to do is send us the order as a PDF document and we'll process it. Okay. And we actually match to the business partner catalog codes in Business One, as well as your item codes in Business One.
Someone was asking the question, Duncan, about showing the process where you receive an invoice that does not have a purchase order. I thought you had shown that. I
did. Actually, it's this document that came in, which I processed in exactly the same way as one that relates to a purchase order. But this one's come in and it's actually ended up on my desktop for approval. And I can approve that document and it will process. But it will read the lines and code the lines to item codes or GL codes based on the documents you've received from that supplier. So in this case, it knows that this document from Connecting London is a service-based document and it has processed it against these lines. It's worth pointing out, now I'm in the approval screen, this looks exactly the same on the browser interface as it does for the processing the document. And I can, if I want to, I could give the user at this point the ability to edit some of these fields in the approval process. So I could say, allow the user to edit departments, edit regions, edit projects, maybe even edit tax codes or GL codes. So I can approve that document. And when I approve that document, again, it will process and post to SAP.
Very good. Very good.
Okay.
Well, that is all the time we have today. Thanks so much, Duncan, for, oh, wait a minute. I just had another question come in.
Go on.
For the expense section, do you need an SAP license in order to use that function?
Really good question. I'm glad somebody asked that one. No, this is what sets us apart of, I made the point earlier, we are not an SAP add-on. You do not need SAP Business One user licenses for all of your users using iDocuments. We use a single professional user license to affect the integration to SAP. You can have 50 users in iDocuments interacting with purchase orders, raising purchase orders, approving purchase orders, processing purchase invoices, approving purchase invoices, doing purchase requests, all of that, and they don't need an SAP user license. That's really important, okay? They do not need an SAP Business One user license. Just one user license will process all of those transactions into SAP Business One. Okay.
So, and this is a subscription license, right, Duncan? So
it is indeed a subscription license. It's remarkably cost effective. As I say, for a purchasing user, I would expect you to see a return on that investment inside a year. You know, in the UK, we're closing 95% of the customers we show this to. They see it, they love it, they buy it. In the US, it's a little bit more challenging. I'm not entirely sure why at the moment. We haven't done the analysis of it, but the bottom line is that the value is there for everybody. You will save time. You will have faster processing. You'll have opportunities to drive down the price through early settlement discount. You'll keep your customers happier, your suppliers happier, because dealing with an invoice query, somebody wants to know where an invoice is. This is a neat feature. Sorry, I've run over now, but we do have this document archive. It's worth mentioning. The document archive allows me to search for individual words that appear on invoices. So if I apply the word temp and do a search for the word temp, it will find all of my invoices that contain the word. Look at that. There's nothing in there with temp. It's a new database. Let's search for glove. If I apply the word glove, it will find all the documents that contain the word glove, whether that word appears within the document, lines and data, or anywhere on the body. So, it's reading the whole document and it's finding everything with the word glove on. If I said maintenance and again, search for that, it'll go and find anything with maintenance. Please tell me there's some invoices. There you go, loads of invoices, maintenance. So there's one, which is a part-approved purchase order. And then these documents are invoices from Connecting London, which are the ones I processed earlier. Okay.
Outstanding.
So that's searching, and if somebody comes into the finance department and says, we bought some widgets 9 months ago, can't remember who we bought them from or where we bought them from, it'll go and find them for you. Any other questions?
Good. That's all we've got today. And I want to thank everyone for being here, especially you, Duncan. And if you are interested in iDocuments and all of the things it can do for your organization, reach out to us. Your CRM in particular can help you, or anyone at Vision 33 that you've got contact with. Just tell them you want to talk about iDocuments, and we'll be glad to show you a lot more about how it can benefit your organization. And until we have a next Wednesday web chat, we'll see you then. Until then, I hope you're well.